Yo. Thanks for listening, downloading, and subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. All right, check this out. On this podcast, we're going to take it back. We're taking it back to the 80s. We're going to give you the certified top 5 hip hop groups of the 80s. Now, if you're a fan of today's hip hop, you know, the hip hop group concept may be a little bit foreign to you because hip hop groups pretty much don't exist. But if you came up in the 80s or you're around that time and you're outside and you're into music, you know exactly what we're going to be talking about on here. And I got a special co-host coming through, my man Eclectik. Now, if you've been following this podcast, you know Eclectik and I never agree on anything. So that's not going to change on this podcast. But it's my man. He's cool. And, you know, I don't run with lames. So he's coming back and we're going to break it down and we're going to give you some education. So sit back, relax. We'll drop the theme music and we'll get the podcast jumping. Let's get it. Welcome back. Thanks again for checking out another edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm your boy 12 Kyle. As I mentioned at the top, man, we're talking about the top 5, our certified top 5 hip hop groups of the 80s. And we got a special guest, man. You know him, you love him. My man. We go back like, I think he said once, fat crayons and car seats.
Yeah, that's it. Fat crayons and car seats.
We go back like Dollar Hogan's and Tahitian treats. My man, my mellow, Eclectik. E, what's up, Playboy?
You know what's up, everybody? I need you to do 3 things: stop, collaborate, and listen.
No doubt, man. Thanks for coming back to the podcast, man.
Yeah, it's nice here in the 12 studios. It's very airy. It's nice. You know, it's nice things on the wall. We got pictures of Miss Melody and Mia X here on the walls. Scantily clad, might I add.
I like it like that.
Bowls of cheese balls and quarter waters. This is nice here. Thank you.
Oh man, always good to have you on, man. Me and this guy, for those of you who don't know, we go back, man. I was thinking about it like earlier today. We go back literally about about 8 or 9 years, something like that.
Oh, because shouts to the message board.
Yes, yeah. Oh, the message board. Those are some good days, man.
Yeah, those message board was popping. This is before social media. This is
before Twitter ruined everything.
Yeah, I created a nice home for a lot of people.
Yes, he did. And so we've been rolling, man, damn near 10 years, and we've never met. We gonna hang out one day. Whenever he makes it back to the ATL or I make it to DC, we gonna hang out.
But, man, way to mess up the illusion. I was in the studio with the cheese balls and the quarter waters. This is why. Boy, I tell you.
So we're here, man. We're talking 80s groups, man. This is going to be an interesting podcast for many of you listening, because some of you don't have a concept as to what a hip hop group is, because if you look at the current landscape of hip hop, there are none. And there really haven't been hip hop groups, at least at this level of caliber of groups that we're going to talk about on this podcast, in a very, very long time. So E, man, we came up in the 80s. What I want you to do before we even start talking about our top 5, tell me what it was like in the 80s when you had a group, or at the very least a crew, what that was like, you know, to in the hip hop sense. How important were groups, hip hop groups?
Well, see, the thing was, back in the day, or a regular MC, your typical MC would, you know, stand on their own, try to be dope. They wanted to be the kings of rap. They wanted to be seen as better than everybody else. Mm-hmm. And when hip hop was in its infancy, they people had crews. They just people that they hung out with, and if one person was rhyming, this is what used to happen, and because this actually happened to me. You know, when you rhyme, you be at home and you write down your rhymes and you recite them in the mirror with your brush. Do whatever you do. You know, you freestyle it against stuffed animals like you ain't nothing. You know, and then you go to school the next day. You just go to school. You do your school thing, and every now and then you might be bored in class and something got in your head and you start writing. And then, like, one of your friends might look over, like, what you doing? They're like, oh, shit, I was just writing this rap. And they were like, I rhyme too. And then it's like, word. And then the next thing you know, you beating on the desk in the lunchroom. Everybody's rhyming and stuff like that. Because people, it was a thing that hip hop and rhyming, that wasn't just a thing you did because you loved the music. It wasn't a thing you did because you was trying to get anything out of it. So you would just write because that's what you did. And then somebody else see it and be like, yo, I didn't know you rap. I rap too. And then you start rapping. And so same thing happened on the block. And it happened a couple of different ways. Sometimes it's friends that'll be, you'll be hanging outside, maybe you shooting ball, and maybe riding bikes, and then you just start rapping, and then your boys will be like, what song is that? You be like, nah, I wrote that. And they're like, word? You rap too? And then you start rapping. And then you'll be like, yo, we should do this together. I'm going to say this because, you got heard Run DMC. And so you say, look, we could be the next Run DMC. Or the other thing happens, is back when you would rhyme, people be like, yo, my man, a couple of blocks, he rhymed too, and he better than you. And he like, he ain't better than me. Bring him over here. And then he come over, and then y'all would battle. And sometimes he be like, yo, you kind of nice. We should link up. Because it was never like, I'm about to shoot you in the forehead because you rhyme better than me. It'd be like, yo, we should definitely link up. And then you start, you be a group like that. 98% of the groups in the 80s and most of them in the 90s, they were friends.
True. Fact.
They knew each other. Once you got to the end of the mid 90s, end of the 90s, they put people together. They were like, look, we signed this dude and his album ain't really popping off the way we thought. And then they be like, well, we just signed this dude and he kind of all right. Like, shit, let's put them together. Let's put these people together. Right. And that's why a lot of groups fell apart, because it was like, man, I don't even really know you. I ain't come in this with you.
Right. We ain't going, boys.
Yeah. And then things like that happen. But it was nice back in the day to have, somebody that you could bounce ideas off of, and you could mark yourself. It's dope when it's one thing to come out with a feline tracksuit, some felines, and some shades, and they'd be like, "Oh, that dude's cool." But when you got three people coming out with the feline tracksuits, maybe one's a different color, you got the different people be like, "What these dudes is dope." Because you got to think about it. This was back when we was buying joints just off the album cover. So when you see that, you're like, these dudes is dope. I don't know what their music sound like, but I gotta get this. That's what it was. We're like, you see three dudes with a New York Yankees hat on and a Yankee shirt. You're like, oh, I bet you they nice. And you just get it. So it was something to that. And, it was something to being able to rock with your boys. And instead of, because back in the day, that's all we had. That's, it was internet, no Twitter, no, most of the people started when they was young. They didn't even have a car. So only thing that you was going to do after you left school or whatever was hang out with your boys anyway. Right. So now, let's hang out with my boys, do what we was going to do anyway, which is rap and listen to music, but also, record. And then we get women.
Exactly.
Because you got to think, the main emphasis back then was to be nice, be recognized as the best, and get women. And money was like tertiary.
Yeah.
It might have been
They weren't worried about getting paid.
Yeah, it might have been even fourth. It was be considered the dopest, get some women, have sex.
Yeah, and get airplay.
Yeah. So when you go to somewhere, be like, yeah, that's me. They were like, word, and then you would have sex. But yeah, groups was dope back then.
Yeah, I agree, man. It was. I'm amazed at how well the groups from the '80s laid the blueprint, and then I'm also disappointed as to how it kind of faded away, man. If you could pinpoint, and we'll get into our certified top 5 real quick, but if you had to pinpoint what happened to where the groups kind of fell off, because we had such an impact in the 80s. Early 90s was still strong. Mid 90s it started trickling. Late 90s groups kind of, after the whole, bad boy era, you started to see a fade, and then by the 2000s, man, the groups were damn near gone. And like even now, I know you don't listen to hip hop now. I vaguely listen to it, but if the 80s gave us such a blueprint, how did hip hop, or why did hip hop groups fall off as bad as they did over the following years?
Now, in my opinion, this is easy. This is an easy answer. Kick
the ballistics to him.
As I said before, the main thing was to rhyme, be considered dope, maybe, and just go party, have, get some women and kick it. Then, and because in the 80s, you got to remember, in the 80s, hip hop, rap music was seen as a fad.
Right.
It was like, oh, that's what y'all doing. Okay. We're going to turn on this Michael McDonald though. And, so what happened to the groups was money. Hip hop became a viable earner. It was in McDonald's commercials, and R&B singers will have a rapper on their songs now because that was how they get to the streets. That's how they got the urban market. Luther couldn't sell no more. Patti LaBelle, when they got Big Daddy Kane on Feels Like Another One. Like, look, I need some hip hop.
Right.
And so once the money started coming in, and people was, because before, if you went gold, people were like, shit, how do you do that?
Right. Oh my God, man.
But then silver and platinum started happening. And so once you started having groups, before it'd be like, look, this group is a unit. But then once the money started coming in, the A&Rs and the record labels started looking at the groups like, who could we make some more money off of? Who's the Bobby Brown of this joint? That's, they looking at leaders of the new school like, Busta Rhymes though, he kind of different. We might be able to do something with that, and so once the money started flowing in, people, on one hand, like I said, the record labels and stuff start looking at the groups like, we could do a solo project with this dude. And then on the other hand, people be in the groups, especially when you're in a group with your boys or your friends, and you know how boys are, we start, irritating each other, every now and then, because before, and listen, especially in the 80s, you fight somebody, and you friends half an hour later, you're like, man, come on, let's go to Burger King. And you never even bring up the fight again.
Right.
And so, but then when money's involved, like, I don't need to be in this group. I wrote half of y'all rhymes anyway. Right. So then you bounce out. So you either had the record label stuff, shouts to Jerry Heller. You had the record label that's like, yo, you don't need them. Wait, how you gonna tell Easy you don't need them when they all wrote your rhymes? You're like, yeah, I kind of do. But then you have just regular egos. And once you have, your egos, and then you could do something about it. Because, see, other groups will have egos and be like, yeah, but, I couldn't do a solo. Ain't nobody gonna listen to me. Or some people they stayed in groups because they're like, look, I don't really want all of the spotlight. I don't want all of the limelight. I can't go. If I went out there by myself, it ain't the same without my boys, even though I hate them. I still, I still want to do this. So eventually people just, not going into it with their people. Instead of, yo, you rhyme, I rhyme too, we should link up, be a group, and go get this money. It's, oh, you rhyme and you rhyme. All right, we're a crew now. Let's both go get solo deals. And we'll be on each other's albums. Mm-hmm. And then we're gonna get 3 of our other friends who can't rhyme, write for them, or just have them be our hype man. Come on, y'all too. And so
now we're a label.
Yeah, exactly. Now we're a label. We're a conglomerate. So, in my opinion, I think that's pretty much. What happened.
Yo, I don't have anything to add, man. I think you broke it down, man. That makes all the sense in the world.
If you really think about it, and this is sad, and I kind of did a podcast about this. There are no R&B groups either.
None whatsoever.
It used to
80s and 90s. That's it, man.
I'm saying, so groups went away, man. And once Beyonce started kicking everybody out, man, it was.
Shout out to Kelly. I like
because hey, all right, do we you like the Destiny's Child?
I'm not a fan of Destiny's Child at all, but okay. I like looking at Kelly, I should say.
Okay, because people that like Destiny's Child, and I'm not bashing, even though I got my own opinions. Name the 2-3 songs that Kelly had the lead on.
I can't think of any.
name the Michelle. Name the Michelle leads. Name the ones she led on, because I can tell you the songs that Ralph sang on, and the songs that Ricky sang lead on, and the songs that Bobby sang leads on. I could tell you the songs that Mike and Ron tried to sing on, but we knew they weren't singers.
Right.
But that's the other thing. Groups back then, everybody got to shine because, like, hey, we're a group. Then it got to, look, I'm the lead. We the Supremes. I'm the lead singer. Y'all back me up. And then, people like, fuck out of here with that, man.
That's really what happened. And it just, you talked about R&B, and hip hop was the same exact way. So, even in saying all of that, man, we're at this place where the 80s, it was so, what made the 80s so dope is that they gave us some of the greatest groups in the era of hip hop. And, there was, like I said, there was a fall off, but we still cherish these groups, man. And one of the reasons why we're here, man, we're going to break down our certified top 5 hip hop groups of all time. So let's get it started.
Of the 80s.
I'm sorry. Yeah, did I say 80s?
You said of all time.
I'm sorry, 80s. Of the 80s. I'm sorry.
These lists can get real different depending on the criteria.
Oh, yeah. We're talking certified top 5 groups of the 80s. All right, so.
Now, before we start.
Go ahead.
What's your definition of a group, Kyle?
You got to have at least 2 MCs. So some people consider Eric B. and Rakim a group. I don't consider them a group because there's only one MC. If you're talking a group, I would consider Public Enemy to be a group because they have 2 MCs, Chuck D and Flavor Flav. Says the man who loves, what's your favorite song? Cole Lampin?
That is not my favorite Public Enemy song. That is my favorite song on that album.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just saying, just because, hey, look, this is your show, man.
But you know what? I asked you for your 5, so, hey, give me your 5. I know you being the hip-hop historian that you are, you will have a valid reason, even though I may not agree, because I never agree with you. You will have a valid reason for your 5. So, by all means, let's make it happen. All right. So number 5, give me your fifth best group from the 1980s.
From the 80s.
And when we say from the 80s, be clear, folks, we're talking about they had to have debuted in the 1980s.
My number 5 group.
He's laughing.
My number 5 group of the 80s debuted in 1984.
Okay.
I have 3 MCs and 1 DJ.
Okay.
UTFO.
You know what, man? I somehow knew that they would end up on this list. UTFO.
Kyle, do you know what UTFO stands for?
What is it? Untouchable forces? Objects or something like that?
Objects. That's dope, man. That's real dope. UTFO, Untouchable Force Organization.
Okay, well, I was close.
Can you name all the members?
Let's see. There's the educated rapper, rest in peace. Kango Kid. Dr. Ice.
Okay.
And DJ. What's the DJ's name?
DJ, you are. He's a ninja and he breaks bones.
So I was close.
Mixmaster Ice.
Damn it.
Anyway, so shouts to the Keystone Dancers, Kango Kid and Dr. Ice. The reason why they're on the list, because one, they were very influential in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Their B-side of their first single sparked a revolution in hip-hop. The Roxanne Saga, with over 100 answer records. Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever done anything like that. It was a B-side. It wasn't even their main single. And that was crazy. It gave birth to one of my favorite rappers, and one of the reasons why I even love hip-hop, Roxanne Shante. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have known Roxanne Shante. And because of Roxanne Shante came out, her DJ was Marley, and this was before the Juice Crew, and maybe the Juice Crew wouldn't have happened. The dominoes is crazy for UTFO, mm-hmm. but people don't, pay too much attention. Besides that, they had 4 albums in the 80s.
Okay.
UTFO, Skeezer Pleaser, Lethal, and Doing It. The UTFO album, I love it. It's incredible. But the Lethal album that came out in 87 is one of the most underrated albums in hip hop. So the fact that, you had 3 MCs that, never broke up.
Nope.
On Skeezer Pleaser, you only had 2 MCs because Educated Rapper was locked up? No, he was in rehab. So it wasn't his fault. I mean, it was his fault, but but he came back. He got out. He cleaned up.
Yeah,
he cleaned up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love UTFO. And what I like to do with these lists and these podcasts and my podcast and my Twitter is to shine lights on MCs and groups that don't really get the recognition. I hate the fact that we gotta wait until somebody die,
right,
or a half-ass hip-hop honors where they only do a little bit of a good job to recognize these people. You never hear people not give the Rolling Stones their props, or the Beatles their props, or the Chicago, the Flaming Lips, Led Zeppelin, And so I want to make sure that people remember, hey, UTFO was a group, a crew, a movement, and they was dope. UTFO, the Keystone Dancers, Kango Kid and Dr. Ice, they was on the Phil Donahue show breakdancing. It was incredible. So. And shout outs to Full Force, because they produced just about everything they did.
Yes.
And what you just don't know how hip hop would have progressed if it wasn't for this group. It's wild to think about, but it's true. I think Roxanne was ranked like, somewhere in the middle of VH1's greatest hip hop songs of all time.
Yeah, I mean it is a classic, and like you said, there were so many responses to that record. It was unreal. It was unreal. Like just imagine, for those of you who did not live through that time, a song coming out, and everybody and their mama run into the studio to record a response.
Listen, they made the Roxanne song again. It was the B-side. Next thing you know, Roxanne Shante made Roxanne's Revenge. And then Sparky D made Roxanne You Through, dissing Roxanne Shante. That didn't have anything to do with Roxanne.
Right.
But then you ended up with Roxanne's Doctor, Due to Roxanne, The Parents of Roxanne, Roxanne's My Sister, Roxanne's Little Sister, Ice Roxanne, Roxanne's a Man, Roxanne is Dead. Then the real Roxanne came out.
All of these are songs for real people.
These are Roxanne's a Man is a for real song. And the songs about Roxanne that UTFO was talking about, or Roxanne Shante, was a man that was raped in prison and turned himself into a woman after they got out of prison. that's what the name was. That's what the song was. Listen, and this was 85.
Very politically incorrect.
Oh, hey, man. Oh, it was crazy. Parents of Roxanne, UTFO, your mouth run like water. What did you have to make a record about my daughter?
It was so many. Like I said, UTFO couldn't even respond to a tenth of the diss record that came behind that. So, okay, I got you. So, okay, you justify it. This is your top 5, man. I love it. UTFO coming in at number 5.
Go ahead.
Number 5 for me, De La Soul. Man, listen, I love these dudes. I think when you talk about, the impact that some groups have, obviously some groups are more impactful than others, but this group is very impactful for not just the genre and the time in which they came out, but the subsequent groups to follow behind them. They were impactful for and led their crew, the Native Tongues. This group, man, you could make a case, and it's I don't even know if it's necessarily up for debate, but their first 2, maybe 3 albums, depending on who you ask, are classics. So I've talked to people who might say, okay, first album was a classic, second one wasn't, third one was. Do your research, listen and judge for yourself, but it's debatable. And Eclectik will tell you, this group right here, the blueprint and the imprint that they left on hip hop was unlike many others prior to them being released. This group is incredible, man. De La Soul, I think, even to this day, they get the props, they get the love, but I still don't know that they get the props and the love that they should get, because they were so dope. And they came out in an era and they managed to, in the 80s, be different. They looked different. They sounded different. They didn't come from, the slums of New York. So their music didn't sound a certain way and they didn't look a certain way. But when you saw Me, Myself, and I remember watching the video for the first time, like, who are these dudes? But the song was so dope, like you had to pay attention to what they were saying. And then when you listen to the rest of the album, you're like, yo, man, it was so refreshing. It's kind of hard for me to put into words. It's one of those things where I don't want to say you had to have been there in the 80s, but if you were there, like, I don't know anybody from that particular era in the 80s that didn't like De La Soul. And that is saying a lot, because you had to be dope for the masses to really, really like you. But yeah, man, De La Soul, number 5, man, for me, man. Love these dudes. Even to this day. I don't love the last album. That's another story for another day. but they, and even beyond the 80s, their level of consistency, I think, is mind blowing. The way that rap has changed, and they were able to change and evolve, but still had the same sound, still had the same dopeness, and they never really, tried to cater to the, to the radio or anything like that. Like, they just wanted to make dope shit, and to be honest, that's what they consistently did over their entire career. So, number 5, it goes without saying, man, De La Soul.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You got quiet there.
You was talking for a half an hour, man. I was doing my homework.
So number 4, who you got coming in at number 4?
I got De La Soul number 4.
Okay. We were close.
Yeah. I mean, they would have been 5th, except for they were more impactful than. I mean, they're not more impactful. I mean, in the long run, I wasn't looking at the long run. I was looking at the 80s. Mm-hmm. But the UTFO is just the fact that UTFO was more of a. After the 80s, you didn't really get much UTFO. And De La Soul was going to be really 5th. They almost weren't on the list because they came out in 89.
True.
And so that's right at the tail end. I don't really want to even count them, but the fact that their first single was out in 88, I was like, okay,
Technically, their album debuted in 89.
Yeah. So I mean, I could go on forever.
Okay, so before we move on, give me your take on that debate about how many classic albums, and I know we're not talking about classic albums, but I got to ask since I brought it up.
Here's the thing about De La Soul.
Break it down.
De La Soul until 2016. They came out of 88. So if you do the math,
I already know where you're going.
From 88 to 2016, they never dropped a whack album until 2016.
And the album in 2016 was whack.
Yeah, that album, listen, I'm going to give everybody that's listening, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on me and De La Soul. All things considered, in my opinion, De La Soul has a stake, a claim for being the greatest hip-hop group of all time. The reason why I say this is because while they're not a Public Enemy or NWA where, everybody loves them and they got movies and shit like that, they were consistently dope for over 3 decades. Consistently, though, what I'm saying is this. When you talk about your Public Enemy, you talk about your NWA, you talk about these people, you're like, yeah, that album was whack. That one had like 2 songs on it that I like. Most of them peaked after their first 2 albums. Most groups, hell, most MCs peak their first 2 albums. Sometimes you get a third out of them. The thing about De La Soul is 9 albums deep. Let me rewind. When you talk about most MCs and most groups, and you ask someone, what's your favorite album? The majority of the people are going to pick one of 2. And it's typically going to be one of their first 2 albums. De La Soul, 9 albums deep. You can ask multiple people, what's your favorite De La Soul album? You're going to get 1 out of 9. Some people be like, yo, 3 Feet High and Rise was my shit. Others going to be like, man, Stakes is High is crazy. Others going to say The Grind Date. Somebody else might say De La Soul is Dead. Somebody else might say Bionics. It's crazy. Because they're always dope. And they reinvent themselves is the thing that they do. They stay dope. They stay in their own lane, but they reinvent themselves. You never get bored with them because their next album doesn't sound like the one that you just heard, but it's still dope. Just imagine that. Imagine your favorite television show every season is just something brand new, and you're like, I didn't see that coming, but this is incredible. Instead of, oh yeah, so that's the husband. He gonna shoot her because he don't like her. He shot her last season. Or you listen to NWA like, yeah, fuck the bitch. You gonna fuck her in the pussy hole, okay? And then you don't like the police still, okay? And then you listen to the Public Game like, yeah, they holding us back. Yeah, we black. Yeah, they can't. Yeah, I like Nikes, but wait a minute. Yeah. But these dudes, they like, hey, it's the Daisy Age. Then De La Soul is dead. Fuck that. We're gonna do this. And then they had another one, the Balloon Mind State. Balloon Mind State. They said in the beginning, what the Balloon Mind State is balloon. They might blow up, but they won't go pop. Because a lot of people is going pop.
Everybody's going pop.
And so they was like, we might blow up like a balloon, but we won't go pop. It was incredible thought. And then stakes is high. So anyway, I could go on forever. So, in my opinion, how many classic albums they got? They got at least 4, maybe 5 classics. And they are hands down the most consistently dope group in hip hop history. Are they the best? It depends on your criteria. If your criteria is discography and longevity and dopeness and lyrics, it's hard pressed to say no. But if you're gonna say, well, NWA impacted these people and Public Enemy impacted these people, and no, because De La Soul stayed in their lane and they just said, look, they like Coochie Rap. They just kept making dope shit. Like, look, I understand, but we're not here to save the world. It's like AZ. He said, loving the game you gave me, loving my name is AZ, never sold millions, but fucking I'm here to save the babies. It's like, hey, man, look, man, I'm just rhyming, man. This is what I love to do. So they just made dope music. They ain't trying to do like, all right, do all kind of craziness. So anyway, but I got them for my 80s group. And that album, that 3 Feet High and Rising album is revolution. Because here's the other thing that Kyle didn't mention, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned. All you guys is listening to hip hop in the last, couple of decades, and you listen to the skits. Yes. You know where those came from.
Yes.
De La Soul. De La Soul's the first person to do skits on a hip hop album.
Yes.
That's it.
Nobody.
No, they invented it. But they don't give props for that. And they not even the ones that's going to be like, yo, we did that. They just like, hey, man, yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, they don't ask for the props, but they get them.
Yeah, you open up that cassette tape, man, it was a fold-out. It was a comic. And then in their second album, like back when you were in elementary school and you would watch the movie and it ding, and you turn the thing to go to the next movie or the next scene, that's what that album did. It was listen. Please do your knowledge on De La Soul. Get the discography. Stop at 2016. And but I'll tell you this, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say on De La Soul. As much as I say they're the most consistently dope group ever, and as much as I say 9 albums deep, and they never made anything whack until 2016, when the 2016 joint came out. A ton of people loved it.
Mm-hmm.
That is how dope they are. Even when they biggest fan looking like, I don't know about this one. You got a whole fucking half a country like, yo, that might be one of their best ones. Damn, they're 30 years later.
Yep.
They still making some of their best music to some people. You're not going to hear that about any group. Any hip-hop group that's been rocking that long. It's like, oh, their 10th album, that's strong. That's one of the best. Nobody's 10th nothing is their best in hip hop. So, I'm just I need to throw that out there.
That's a great point, man. Great point. I have nothing to add. I think De La Soul is, you echo some of the same sentiments, man. And I'm not even gonna get into that 2016 album, but
we'll be on Twitter and every time we was trashing it, people saying that they liked it.
They loved it. And it was another thing, and it doesn't make any sense at this point, but I think that album debuted at number 5 or something. It was something crazy, and it debuted higher than any of their other albums did or something like that. So
that is a testament of how dope they are. Public Enemy ain't doing that. NWA ain't doing that.
Nope. Not even close. So like you said, nearly 30 years later, they're still here and they're still doing it. So that speaks volumes. Yeah. my number 4, Eric and Parrish Making Dollars. EPMD. Man, this group, man, obviously came out in the 80s. They were the streets, man. They were the streets for, kids like me who grew up in South Carolina that, had no idea about what was going on in New York. And they just, the rhymes were dope. The beats were even doper. EPMD, man, was just, they were like some of the first cats that I remember seeing on videos that just really, really looked cool. The album covers were cool. And then they had the business theme, strictly business, out of business, going, 2 more businesses, whatever the case was. EPMD, man, was just one of those groups, man, that I think, at least for me and my boys, man, when they came out in 88, everybody gravitated toward that music and that sound and that look the Fisherman has. And, I think one of the things that speaks volumes about EPMD, which me and this guy right here argued on a previous podcast, was when they broke up, it was like a death in the family. Because keep in mind, when we heard about the EPMD breakup, there was no Twitter, there was no internet, so I think I saw it on MTV News or something like that. And then so subsequently, we were sad because at that particular time, hip hop groups didn't break up, right? And obviously they got back together, and they're still making music, man, still making dope sounds. But I think this group, man, I think for me, their style, their sound, their quality of and their body of work stands the test of time, man. I got EPMD coming in at number 4.
That is very solid.
There it is. Who you got for number 3?
Now, since we're talking 80s, I'm going to put this is at the 3 spot, at the 3 position, that's at small forward. A group who in the 80s and only the 80s made iconic classic hits. Now, because we're only talking 80s, so.
Only 80s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 2 MCs, 1 DJ, made the debut in 1983. Houdini.
Boom. I knew that they would make your list. I just wasn't sure where.
Number 3. Listen, we have the rapper Jalil, have Ecstasy, and Grandmaster D.
Hit me.
A funky beat. Houdini was so dope because they did something brand new. Their sound was totally different from everybody else's. Partly because they didn't record in the United States.
Interesting.
Yeah, they recorded in England, and they had producers who did other shit. They had Thomas Dolby produced a lot of their songs. Thomas Dolby is another. He's a singer. 80s did they Blinded Me with Science. Yeah, he produced Houdini's joints. He did Mr. Magic's Wand. Because he had all that electronic techno stuff. That's all you hear in the 5 minutes of funk. All that stuff came from there. Nobody. If you listen, it was like, yeah, it was London. If you listen, none of their tracks, none of their beats sounded like anybody else's at the time. The drums and stuff, they were They had bands that were playing it. They didn't sample drums like how Run DMC would or everybody else would. They had bands that were playing those. That's why when you heard the Friends beat, that's why that was the first time you ever heard that beat. Because that beat didn't exist. Nobody sampled that. The Freaks Come Out at Night. All the music, or most of the music, was original music. The instruments and the electric, it wasn't samples. It wasn't somebody taking a guitar riff from another song and using. All of that stuff was. So that's what made them extra dope. And because of that, the songs stood out. They had so many classic. They have, in my opinion, more classic singles than probably any other group. Now they don't have more dope songs because
the singles.
Yeah, but the singles,
not just favorite singles, but classic singles.
Yeah, you get Big Mouth, Freaks Come Out at Night, Friends, Funky Beat, One Love, 5 Minutes of Funk. I mean, they were strong in the 80s.
Singles.
Yeah, they were strong in the 80s. And because of how strong they were, they kind of got pigeonholed into to that sound, and they just couldn't evolve with it. But we talked before on another show how back in the day, if you went gold and doing hip hop, people were like, yo. 84 Escape and Back in Black in 86 by Houdini went platinum.
That's saying a lot.
That's 84 and 86 with platinum.
That was unheard of in 84 and 86.
So Houdini had to be on the list. And again, they're typically, if you talk about hip-hop groups in whatever decade, period, but especially, if you even broke it down to the 80s, nobody's going to bring up Houdini. And that's why I do. Because I need people to peep dopeness. Dopeness is not just in the top 3 things or 5 things that's on the tip of everybody's tongue. The candy at the bottom of the bag is just as delicious as the candy at the top of the bag.
Or the French fries.
Yeah, there's the prize in the cereal box is not floating at the top of the cereal for a reason. You got to get in there.
I'm sure that flew over a whole bunch of people's heads.
Yeah, shouts to the submarine around on bacon soda and Wacky Wall Walker's fighter. But look, Houdini, if you go listen to 5 Minutes of Funk and listen to Love and listen to Friends, you're doing good for yourself on your hip hop history. You're doing good. Just go listen to those songs and get back to me. Houdini.
Man, I wrote them down and I didn't even ask you to do any honorable mentions, but I have them written down as honorable mention. I think I echo everything you said. I think one of the things that you said that stands out, man, is that they're constantly not recognized. And when you think about those, like you said, those classic singles, and to go platinum in, what did you say, 84 and 86? That's unheard of. Like, nobody was doing, the only group I can think of, well, shit, now Run DMC didn't even do that when Rockbox dropped. And if they did go platinum, it was probably later, after the next album dropped. But yeah, Houdini, man, they didn't make my list, but I'm glad that you had them on your list, so at least they get talked about. But for those of you listening, if you don't know about Houdini, man, do your research, man. This group is incredible, and they don't get the recognition that they deserve. Like I said, they fell just short of my top 5. But I'm glad that they're in E's top 5, because at least that way we get a chance to talk about them, man. So, yeah, shout out to Houdini. My number 3 Niggas for life. Straight out of Compton. NWA, baby. It goes without saying, man, this group is iconic. I love them. I love the fact that they really pushed the bar as far as what they wanted to say. They weren't afraid to say what they wanted to say and be who they were. We all know about, their stance as far as the police and talking about police brutality. And, quite frankly, a lot of the stuff that they talked about in those albums and those songs, preceded the, LA riots and police brutality. And they really talked about a lot of stuff that, we talked about amongst ourselves, but to be able to put it on wax and put a movement behind it, I think says a lot. But I think this group was just, they call themselves the world's most dangerous crew, and I agree. And this group, over a period of time, the family tree, if you will, was extremely successful, from Eazy-E to the groups that he touched, like Bone Thugs and Harmony, to Ice Cube, and Ice Cube going on to be this big, huge Hollywood movie star, to Dr. Dre. And we all know what Dre has done as far as his production, and then his work with Eminem, discovering Eminem, 50 Cent, so forth and so on. And now, with Beats and, being a hip hop billionaire, if you will. So yeah, I mean, and that's just their longevity, but just the music that they dropped, NWA, man, I think Straight Outta Compton is one of the most groundbreaking hip hop albums of all time. I think, and I had a discussion / argument with a cat the other day, and he was telling me that Straight Outta Compton sounds dated. And what I tried to explain to him was, if you're listening as a 20-year-old, what it sound? I don't know. First of all, I don't know what dated means, because I think I know what it means. But
when you play something to dance to, in 2016 or 2017,
exactly. So in 2017, it's not gonna sonically, it's not gonna sound all that great or whatever like that. But a lot of the music from the 80s, no, they didn't. Like you mentioned earlier, they didn't have the necessary equipment, and a lot of the music was based off of samples that was from earlier years or what have you like that. So no, the album's not dated at all. You have to actually listen to what they're saying, and I think that's part of the. And I've heard people have told me on Twitter, well, I can't really get into the 80s hip hop because the music just doesn't sound the same to me. Well, no, it's not going to sound the same sonically, but back then in the music, it really didn't. A lot of ways, people didn't care about how it sounded. It's about what the guys were rhyming about, or the girls were rhyming about.
If you listen to Beyonce's Lemonade and then play Where Did Our Love Go by the Supremes, that's not gonna sound dated as hell. But Where Did Our Love Go is an incredible song.
Still is to this day. And I mean, like,
you better shop around. I'm like, shit, they're killing it. But
exactly. And I to my only response was like, I could take a song like, for instance, South Bronx. On one of the most incredible hip hop albums ever by BDP. The beat sounds like somebody was playing on a Casio keyboard, a 12-year-old. There's nothing great about the beat. There's nothing dope about how it sounds sonically. Put it on in a club and see what happens.
I'm gonna do you one better.
Go ahead.
And this is something that you can, people that's listening, I want you to think about this. And this is something that you, Kyle, can do or mention when you have these debates with people. Mm-hmm. Say this: I could take one of these songs from the 80s and play the acapella over any beat, and it's gonna be dope. Or I could play the acapella, period, and you're gonna love it. Well, let me take the acapella from one of your trappy trap songs.
I pull up to the store.
You're gonna look like a fool if you would be embarrassed. It's the equivalent It is the equivalent. It's the 100% equivalent of being at a club and having everybody dance, but turn the music off and just watch them dance. You're like, what the fuck
Like,
are they
what
doing?
are you doing?
You look like an idiot. That's
Right.
what that music sounds like without the backing track.
Right.
But here's the other thing that that doesn't go mentioned enough. In the 80s, because we're talking about the 80s right now, when they released a single, they would release the single, the instrumental, and the acapella. They'd be like, yo, it's just the lyrics. It's just somebody rhyming. You know, of course, for DJs to put it under a different thing or anything, a different song, or, you know, mixing it. But we just listen to the acapella like, damn, he killing it.
Right.
We would listen to music, people just beatbox because the lyrics was dope. Go ahead and play your Migos with no music.
Please don't.
With acapella.
You'll have an aneurysm.
Yeah, but let's see how dope it is with no music behind it. And you just had to listen to the lyrics. You would be embarrassed, like, damn, that sounds really stupid.
Right. That's a great point. I would definitely use that. So yeah, I it goes without saying, man. Coming in at number 3 for me, NWA, man. I love them. Both albums still get run for me. I think it's a shame that they only had 2 albums. We've seen the movie, and E and I did a podcast about the movie and everything like that. And I think it's good that they got the shine that they got, and obviously they went into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and so NWA, man, one of the greatest of all time in my opinion. So let's move on to number 2. Who you got at 2?
No, I forget, and because I did my list, I promise I did. Were these what we thought were the best, or these are favorites?
Just your thoughts,
because it's 2 different things.
Yeah, your thoughts of who the best is.
Okay, cool. Not favorites. All right,
no,
cool.
Not favorites.
All right, so in that case, number 2 is Eric and Parrish Millennium Ducats.
Okay.
EPMD. The reason why EPMD is so high, and the reason why they're number 2, and I preface this because if we went favorites, they were going to be number 1, but it's not because they're my favorites.
Okay.
My favorite group. Okay. But being a subjective list and all. So they changed rhyme. They changed the rhyme patterns of a group. They changed how groups, the production for groups, and they ushered in a brand new style. If you listen to a Houdini, like I said before, or a UTFO, they wasn't rhyming like EPMD. EPMD did for groups what Rakim did for soloists. They, instead of I'm doing this and this, now back to him, and then they're like, he gave it back to me, so I'm saying this, now back to him, or the we rhyme, I do it, he did it, we did it, and then it's do the other part together. They get rid of all of that. They was just like, yo, I'm the E-double-E. and the other thing is, they, within a group, you also didn't have this, had different styles. When you had Ecstasy and Jelly was the same. Ecstasy talked about women a little bit more, but they were about the same.
Right, they're about the same.
You listen to Run DMC, they're about the same. DMC had the ill echo. You listen now, UTFO, I will give them their props. They had different personas. They was like wrestlers. You had an educated rapper who would just only talk about some educated book smart shit. And then Dr. Ice would always throw some medical terms in there, and Kango was a lover. He was a soldier of love. So he would rhyme, mostly about women. But if you weren't astute enough, you wouldn't peep that out. But their cadence and everything was just about the same. EPMD, one dude had a lisp. So you couldn't, that was different anyway.
And it was pretty obvious too.
Yeah, he had a lisp, and they both rhymed slow, but Eric Sermon would get you with the humor. Every now and then he'll break out and start singing. And PMD was a straight man. He just, he would just go straight lyrical, not playing around. And that kind of dynamic was, you didn't have that anywhere in hip hop before. You had some personas, but you didn't have this is me. Also, you didn't have people like, my name is MCD. He was like, my name's Eric Sermon.
Right.
That's my name.
That's my name.
Yeah, it wasn't Dr. Ice, wasn't Jaleel, which is his name, but he used his whole name. I'm rapper Eric Sermon. That is me. And but the production wasn't just a 808. It wasn't just a regular sample. They really did some for real production. There was a lot of funk. A lot of stuff, a lot of funk going on in there. A lot of Kool in the Gang, some ZZ Top, Bob Marley. I Shot the Sheriff was in there. Zach Morebout. When You Got to Chill dropped. When You Got to, like I just said earlier, when you Got to Chill was the equivalent to I Ain't No Joke coming out for as groups and MCs. When that came out, it was like, okay, so we got to change everything that we're doing, because zero sounded like that before that, including I Ain't No Joke. Nothing in hip hop sounded like You Got to Chill before You Got to Chill came out. And like you said, they had, the business gimmick, which when they first came out, I was like, oh, strictly business, okay. And then the next one came out like, oh, and then the other one came out like, oh, and then you just wondering what the next one was gonna be. But the and how you were talking about NWA, and I'm not gonna get into my personal feelings on NWA because it'll be crazy. I think they're overrated. But anyway, when you talked about NWA and their family tree, I argue the EPMD's family tree, while not as big, is doper, has more talent to it. Because the NWA family tree, your biggest branches is Cuban Dre. Dre production, for the most part, is pretty good. He didn't rap. Cube, and 2 albums deep. After third album, it's like, okay, you can go on with yourself. But EPMD's tree includes Redman, Das Effects, K Solo, Keith Murray, and by depending on how you want to branch it, even Method Man is on that tree. But all the people that Eric Sermon produced, it's a strong tree. Jamal, I mean, it's a strong tree if you really look at it, because they did a lot for hip hop, and even when they first came out, people around town talking this and that, how we sound like that.
Yes.
I mean, this is coming from an era where it sounded like the greatest lyricist of all time was a diss.
It
was like,
you were wrong for sounding like one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, that is the equivalent of you being outside shooting a hoop. Man, you play like Jordan. Like, but now back then you were like, no, I don't. Because biting was not allowed. It didn't matter who the fuck it was. Right. Like, no, get out of here. I play like me. But it's the equivalent of that. Like, man, get out of here. Like, hey, yo, I just did a play. That shit's just like Shakespeare. But that means it's dope, right? That means it's okay. All right. So anyway, that's what I'm going with at number 2, and it's clearly. I think we better have the same number 1. But anyway, go ahead.
We should have the same number 1. My number 2.
Well, hold on. Who could this number 2? Oh, okay. I know what the number 2 is. I'm sorry. I know what your number 2 is.
Number 2. You already know.
Yeah, I was wondering for a second. I was like, who could it possibly? It's these guys.
PE, a group, a crew. Not similar. We wear black Wranglers. Yeah, Public Enemy, man. This group, I think, man, it goes without saying. I think they are one of the most influential hip hop groups of all time. Not just for me, but a whole movement. For a lot of us, the '80s. While the 80s gave us some great music, the 80s was, some very troubled times in the hoods, and in the suburbs and in the country, as us down south folk would say. And it wasn't necessarily good in a lot of neighborhoods, with the pushing of, social agendas and crack and, police brutality and all of these social ills that, really beset most of us even to this day. That being said,
you heard what crack did to Applejack, right?
He killed it.
Yeah, just checking.
But nonetheless, man, Public Enemy was a group, man, that really brought a lot of these issues to the forefront. And then they really, talked a lot about, the self-pride and self-reliance for us as a people. And to have that type of political message, but not necessarily beating you over the head with it. And I think I will make a case that PE probably in their subsequent albums in the 90s, kind of got a little bit more preachier and people kind of tuned people out a little bit. But in the 80s and early 90s, man, PE was coming with it. And, their first 3 albums, Yo Bum Rush the Show, It Takes a Nation of Millions, Hold Us Back, and Fear of a Black Planet, you could put those 3 up against any other group, a set of albums, and they will hold their own. Chuck D, his voice, his power, again, as a lyricist, doesn't get mentioned in a lot of conversations as one of the greats. But his message, Fight the Power, is a great theme song, was the theme for the Do the Right Thing movie. 911 is a joke. I could go on and on about their anthems. Flav was just, he was there, he was lamping, cold lamping. He got Louis' boy, not tramping. But yeah, I think this group, man, they really were ahead of their time as far as some of the things that they were talking about socially. But even in all of that, delivering a message, but still dope rhymes, still making us dance, still making us think. And I think at a time with, things were very, the world was, in a lot of turmoils, Public Enemy really brought something different to the table, because they were able to deliver a message, and again, we're not sounding preachy, and it was hard, man. The production on the albums, crazy. Shout out to the Bomb Squad. And again, you had the yin and the yang of Chuck D and Flavor Flav. Flav wasn't going to blow you away lyrically, but, if you saw him on stage with the S1Ws, he was going to have a good time. So, yeah, coming in at number 2 for me, that would be Public Enemy. So now, here we are, man. We're at number 1. Our number 1s, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they are the same. So tell the people, man, who comes in at number 1?
Number one with the bullet, the greatest of all time, the greatest hip hop group in the 80s. Super Lover C and Casanova Rudd, man.
Pump it up, a 1, 2, 1, 2, I pump it up. Now check this out, Rudd. Come on, get some, stop yelling it. I know you like the jam, but his name is still seldom telling it. Simple, because I hide it, but super loving be getting them. Causing the girls to freak the funky jams that I be kicking them. Point to any girl as I rap, they will be quoting, also scoping and hoping I was the man because I'm doping. Girls love the love of...
We had to put super... What? What happened?
No.
What? Girls that got them locked, pump it up. No?
Love that joint.
That showing is incredible. 1, 2, a pump. Oh, you meant on the this list. My bad. Daryl and Joe.
There it is.
Run DMC. Number one, regardless of what your opinions are of their longevity, you can't put anybody ahead of Run DMC. I mean, I would love to, but you just can't. They meant too much to hip hop. They meant the work. If it wasn't for them, we might not even have hip hop.
This is true. This is so true.
Because, before them, they weren't the first rap group by any stretch of the imagination. No. But they brought rap from trying to be like disco and punk rock and made it its own thing. The early rap groups were still trying to get into the clubs and compete with the same music. They were dressing like they were wearing feathers and spikes and
they were dressing weird, real weird.
It was. If you go look at the old Africa Bambaataa shows or the Furious Five, look what Melly Mel used to wear. And Run DMC was like, all right, let me just throw on these Adidas and some jeans and these hats, these gold ropes. There wasn't no gold ropes before Run DMC. Look at the Funky 4+1 and Melly Mel and you're not gonna see any pictures of them with gold ropes before Run DMC came out. Just the style alone, but the music and the back and forth that they did and the rhyme patterns again, like I said, DMC with that echo. It's two people in hip hop that works the echo like no other. It's DMC and Greg Nice. Nobody rocks the echo better than those two. But they come out with the self-titled, the Run DMC. And this is back when your album had like 4 songs on it. But and the songs was like 6 minutes apiece.
Right.
But the first album, Rock Box, had Crush Groove 1 and 2 on it. For those of you listening, Crush Groove, not the song from Crush Groove. A lot of people don't know this, so I'm always here to educate a little bit. The song Sucker MCs, the 2 Years ago, a friend of mine asked me, that's Crush Groove 1.
People don't know that.
And they have another song called Hollis Crew. That's Crush Groove 2. But the first joint they had arguably, it depends on how I feel, but I have one of the most weirdest favorite Run DMC songs of all time. 30 Days is quietly my favorite Run DMC song.
Stop it.
I love that song.
That's crazy.
Have you ever found a man with a guarantee? Well, you're looking at him now because the man is me. Oh, man. I buy you things and treat you right. And if it ain't so different, once I go work it out twice. Hey, man, I love 30 Days. If you find that you don't like my ways, well, you can send me back in 30 days. Anyway. People that don't know the song Daryl and Joe, that's Crush Groove 3. Together Forever, it's Crush Groove 4.
Another banger.
But they had some. Now I was talking about Houdini earlier with singles. The only group I can think that can mess with them is Run DMC.
That's it.
Because King of Rock. You talk too much. Can you rock it like this? And we're not even getting to Raising Hell. It's like that. And that's the way it is. Rock Box, Hard Times, Suck It. We're not even talking about Raising Hell. Raising Hell by itself.
Oh my God.
Raising Hell by itself is every song is a classic. even I don't particularly care for Walk This Way.
I don't either, but it's a classic. It's a classic, yeah.
Every song, and you cannot say this about, I can't think of any group. I can't even think of, not even EPMD, because they got Kayla Boss on the scratch on Strictly Business, and they got You Had Too Much to Drink on Unfit.
Shout out to
every stuff tastes like fruit punch. I could drink that all night. But every song on Raising Hell is a classic in one way or the other. Whether it's a longevity, like a bona fide classic like My Adidas and It's Tricky and not Raising Hell, but Peter Piper, I like a legit classic, or just a classic like Dumb Girl. Like it's a classic, a timeless classic, maybe not. Like My Adidas and Peter Piper and Walk This Way and It's Tricky. Right. By the way, those are the first 4 songs on the album.
That's how they come out the gate.
Just like, look, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing.
We ain't playing with y'all.
And I'll be remiss because I'm gonna let Kyle discuss and do the knowledge on Run DMC as well. But I'll be remiss if I don't say it again. The greatest 27-second song in the history of hip hop. Put it like this. This is what you can do, and this is what I do. It's 2 things that I do to see who my audience is. I did this when I had a message board. I did this on Twitter. I've done this on Facebook. I would go on Facebook, and you can put in your status. Mm-hmm. I would go in and I would type A, capital A, and a whole bunch of capital W's. The next person under there will reply with, "Nobody can rap quite like I can." If you go into a group of people and just go, "Aw," they're gonna finish it.
Right.
Also, the second thing that I'll do, I'll go on Twitter and I'll type, yo Jay, check this out. I was born. And that's it.
That's it. That's all that needs to be said.
They will finish it. And if you're in a group of people, somebody's going to bust up the beatbox.
They have to. It's a must. They have to.
And if you're around real, true hip-hop fans, at the end they're going to say, and that's how it is now, huh? And if you're hanging around me, I'm going to be like, you know I'm proud to be black. Because that's what came on immediately after.
Oh, my God. That album. Oh, my God. Man.
Raising Hell is my 3rd favorite hip-hop album of all time. It's number 3. It's been number 3 since it came out. It's number 3. I have a top 5 that's never changed.
Yeah, the Raising Hell album is one of those albums that we often said this before, and I'm gonna say it again. As a hip hop fan, if you don't have that album in your collection, if you don't have it in your phone, if you don't have it in your iPod, if you don't have it in your whatever, I don't know how you can call yourself a hip hop fan, because like that is the holy grail of hip hop albums. Like you got where you want to put it on your list, that's fine, but incredible album. And like you said, the first 4 songs, I mean, like they just really just smack you in the face. Like, this is what we're doing. And I mean, like there's very few albums where, and I have to go back and look, and I don't have the information in front of me, but I think if they really wanted to, they could have released every single off that album, and it would have been a hit, hands down. And again, I could make a case that the most popular song on the album, Walk This Way, is probably the weakest song on the album.
That's where I stand.
So, the most popular song, the song that got them on MTV, got them all these awards, got them all this money, is the weakest song on the album. And it's still a good song. I mean, it's not the first song that I play. It's not a skippable track, but it's the weakest song on the album. But yeah, man, Run DMC, man, There's not much more I can say. They are, like you said, E, and I think you said it best. If we don't have Run DMC, I don't necessarily know if hip hop of today, rap, whatever you want to call it, hip hop as we know it, I don't know if it actually happens. They were just that influential because, again, you look at the time in which they dropped, and not only were they the first to get major airplay on MTV, but they were able to cross over, and they didn't make crossover songs with them throwing the guitar riffs on Rock Box and songs like that. Those radio stations came to Run DMC. Run DMC didn't have to go to those radio stations. So I love these guys, man. Shout out and rest in peace to Jam Master Jay. There's so many quotables, hip hop quotables on these albums. You literally could run through Run DMC's discography, particularly especially the first couple of albums, and just play them all day. And you never, those are good music, good songs, good albums to listen to musically, just over periods of time. Never gets old or tired of listening to, man. So yeah, I agree 1,000%. E and I rarely agree on albums. We rarely agree on things in hip hop, man. But we do agree that the number one certified hip hop group of the 80s is Run DMC.
And just to show you, to give you a little glimpse of how, because the Raising Hell is just, that album is crazy. You know how when Nas's Illmatic came out, and people say, hey man, that's a classic, but what's the one gripe that they have about Illmatic?
It's too short.
Right.
Way too short. The album is only 39 minutes.
Yeah. It's too short, right? Raising Hell is shorter than Illmatic.
It really is.
It's shorter than Illmatic. That's how dope fucking Raising Hell is. Because nobody even said that. Like, man, Raising Hell is too short, man. Nobody ever said that. Ever. It was just like, man, I just keep playing it, man. I just keep playing it. It's 12 songs on it.
Yeah, it never grows old, man. So there it is. You have it. Those are our certified top 5 groups, hip hop groups
of the 80s.
From the 80s, man. Not of all time, but from the 80s in particular, man. So before,
go
ahead.
Like maybe 3 of the 5 is probably all time anyway.
Yeah, no question. No question at all. But yeah, man, before we get out of here, E, man, tell the people where they can find you on this social media thing.
Wherever I lay my hat is my home. And when I die,
oh my God,
gotta collect the mortgage.
Oh my God.
Something for the radio, Biz Marquee.
Yes.
On your Twitter machines, at eclectik, ECLECTIK. On your Twitter machine, at Tweet Rhymes Life. On your Twitter machine, at Podcast EDP. On your Twitter machines, at the number 1 Gotta Go. On your iOS devices, on your Stitcher Radio app, on your SoundCloud, look up Eclectic Discussion Podcast. On your iOS device, or Android if you're lame. It's not. Don't blame me that
don't blame me either.
Poor decisions.
Don't blame me either.
Yeah. On your SoundCloud, on your Stitcher app, Stitcher Radio app, look up Encyclopedia Hip Hop, and listen to one of the dopest podcasts that it's the podcast that you love that don't be getting no airplay.
This is true.
It's a lot of good production there. You're going to learn something. Every time you listen to one of my shows, you're either going to learn something about hip hop, you're going to learn something about the 80s, or you're going to hear a song you've never heard before or you haven't heard in a long time. I guarantee one of those 4 things is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Or you might learn something about yourself.
Yeah, you might have to take a look in the mirror. start crying.
Right.
But yeah, just look me up and tweet to me. If you try to debate me about hip hop, I'm gonna give you 2 tweets. And depending on what you do with those 2 tweets, I will just not answer you anymore. But I will give you 2 tweets.
It'll give you 2.
2 strikes.
So yeah, if you heard our 5, if you disagree or if you agree, we'd love the feedback, man. Hit us up on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at 12Kyle, the number 12 KYLE. This is on SoundCloud, so you can drop a comment in the comment section or Stitcher as well. No comments on Apple Podcasts, but again, you got the information. If you want to send me an email, hit me up at 12kyle@gmail.com. So yeah, man, you've been schooled. So for my man E right here, I'm your boy 12 Kyle. We'll catch you guys next time. 5,000. Oh shit, we out.